Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about my experience being an engineering manager and talk about how I would think about determining if being an engineering manager is right for you. A little bit of backstory. Obviously, for the last 2.5 years, I've been an engineering manager at a company. Unfortunately, I was laid off at the beginning of June. Don't worry, I have a new job. But this job is I'm going to be an individual contributor. I decided to go back to writing code full time as opposed to being an engineering manager. And there are a lot of different things that I could talk about. So I'm just gonna kind of dive in and we'll see where the conversation goes. If you have specific questions that maybe I didn't get to in this video, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I'll answer what I can. But because I really think that, everybody's different. Everybody wants something different out of their job. And everybody wants something different at different points in their career as well. And on top of that, every opportunity is just a little bit different. There is a lot more similarity between being a software engineer at different companies. Obviously, stacks vary and maybe technologies as well. But being a software engineer, you're kind of expected to write code. And as you get higher up on the ladder, more senior, you're expected to do a lot more mentoring and planning and breaking down of problems into smaller problems that are more easily solvable, kind of thinking through what code is actually going to be written, more so than actually writing the code. Obviously, you do still write code as an individual contributor at all levels. You are expected to write code, but the amount of code that you write and maybe the type of code that you'll write and how it affects the rest of your team is what really changes from level to level. And I can get into that, what does it look like between junior developer, mid-level, senior, so on, in a future video. I may actually already have a video that I talked a little bit about that on. So go looking for that. If I can find it, I'll leave it down in the video description. But in this video, let's talk specifically about engineering manager. So when I think about being an engineering manager, there are a few different components to the job that I think of. There's obviously the people management component. That's typically, like, it doesn't matter what company you're at, there is some people management component to being an engineering manager. Whether it's over a team, a department, that might vary, but it is a management position. It is definitely a people management position. And if that doesn't sound interesting to you, you can probably stop watching the video right now. Don't go into engineering management. However, some people I know have gotten into engineering management for some of the other aspects. And while the people management aspect doesn't really excite them, it isn't what gets them out of bed in the morning. They do recognize that they're not terrible at it. They are appreciated for it. And they're not going to do a disservice to their organization or to their reports by being a manager, but it gives them the opportunity to do some of the other things, which are the next one that comes to mind is technical leadership. So that's even more so than like a staff software engineer role or a software architect role. There's a lot more involvement in kind of the more businessy landscape. Let me try to talk in specific terms, more concrete terms. So obviously, beyond just like what services are we going to stand up, or in an object-oriented scenario, maybe what classes or interfaces are we going to put together? We're talking, how expensive is this going to be, or how is this going to affect other parts of the business? Even less non-technical aspects of the business, marketing and sales and support and that sort of thing. Well, I guess support might be technical. But it's a little bit different direction. Instead of just the technical design and architecture that specifically impacts engineers, there's a little more strategy around it. So that's one aspect. Another aspect of being an engineering manager is project management. And I'll be honest, this was my least favorite part of the job, and is in fact the main reason that I am not going to be an engineering manager in this next role. I might get back into engineering management at some point, but at least for this next role, I just kind of got burnt out on how we were doing project management, and I don't necessarily think that's a good or bad thing. It just wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. But depending on the organization, that might be, what the organization needs, right? Some organizations do have dedicated project managers, whereas others don't, and that's something they expect of their engineering managers. And what that looks like, it depends on the process, right? Obviously, in something like Scrum or another Agile framework, you might kind of be the Scrum Master. You might be I hesitate to say Agile Coach, because that's something, in my opinion, completely different. But organizing the projects and the expectations and reporting on them and that sort of thing. If you're in more of a waterfall organization, there are obviously a little bit, different aspects to it. And if that's something that you're up for, that's totally fine. Again, it wasn't really what I was up for. But to each their own. And there are other aspects to engineering management depending on the particular organization. But those are the three big ones in my opinion. There's the people management, the technical leadership, and the project management aspect. Obviously, things like performance reviewing and that sort of thing, but that kind of falls into people management. So yeah, ultimately, that was not really, I kind of got burnt out of it. And I recognize that different organizations have different expectations of engineering management. I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. I do think it's a good thing because everybody's different, and there are some people who want to advance in their career and get into a people management role, but not every people manager is the same. You don't want everyone to fit into the same template, and all organizations are different, so they really have different needs from their engineering managers. So in that sense, it's a good thing. However, there's also the downside where it kind of makes it hard to evaluate different engineering manager roles against each other. And I'm not talking like in the performance management aspect. I'm talking if you're specifically looking for an engineering manager role. In some cases, what is it even called? Some places might call something a team lead, but it might actually be a people management role and basically an engineering management role. Others might just call it engineering manager. And within that might indicate some of the different expectations between the different organizations. But at the same time, you really have to ask questions in the interview process to determine what is expected from an engineering manager at that organization. Ask about what the process is. Ask about other members of the team. Do they have project managers? Do they use Scrum? Do they have Scrum Masters? Do they do the Scaled Agile framework, which comes with its own set of roles and responsibilities distributed amongst different people? You really have to ask those questions because it's not just going to be, I'm a relatively senior software engineer, whether you are you have the title senior software engineer or are a software engineer with significant tenure. I want to get into people management. Let me go look for an engineering manager position. It's not that simple. At this point, I could ramble on for much longer, but I will spare you that because the video is already at 10 minutes. If there is a question that you have about potentially becoming an engineering manager, or even about switching back from engineering manager to being an individual contributor, because that is a thing, that is a question that lots of people have. Like, I was an engineering manager, but I kind of don't want to do it anymore. What is the transition path back to being an individual contributor? If you want me to talk more about that, leave a note in the comments. Anything I didn't talk about, anything about, you know, this subject matter, wow, anything about this subject matter that you want me to talk more about, either in its own video or just answer in the comments below, leave a note and I'll get back to it. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, by the way, this is the first time I've done a video in back-to-back weeks in a long time, so hopefully I can keep this up. I've got a few that I'll actually be at my computer doing next week. I'm gonna record a bunch and then kind of I'll stagger their release over the course of the next several weeks, but I'm pretty excited about them. I'll be showing off some projects that I've done in the past that I've abandoned, and I'll be talking about why I abandoned them and how to learn from my mistakes. So I'm excited about that. I hope you are too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.